background, keep your cameras off. We do obviously love to see your face and love to have participation, but whatever you feel comfortable with is great. So for those that don't know me, my name is Jenny. I'm the founder of Construction Health and Wellbeing. We are joined by Stuart. So Stuart also works for Construction Health, and we have our special guest today, which is Emily. So welcome, Emily. Thank you for joining us. So format for today, I think we're going to have an open discussion. You've got some slides, Emily, I think, haven't you, to share as well, explain a little bit about your background and what your organisation does. But feel free to ask some questions in the chat. Stuart, what's the plan with Slido? I know you were going to ask some poll questions today as well.
I think what might be a good way forward is for Emily to tell us a little bit about herself, if that's okay, and then we can maybe I'll put up the two word clouds and poll, and that hopefully will facilitate a conversation or help Emily with regards to how we can move things forward. But I've known Emily now for 4 or 5 years. Not sure when we first. You're new, by the way, Emily. Not sure when we first met. But I invited Emily to this session mainly because of selfishly, I guess, my involvement with the Wellbeing Lead Academy and the qualifications that you can get from there. But there's more to Emily than that, which I'm sure she'll tell you about. So there's the Ambassador program, as well as recently being an author. So why don't I just hand over to you, Emily, and you can I'm not sure I've done you any justice there, but you can, without talking yourself
I thought
up,
great.
Tell us who you are, where you come from, and what you do.
Thanks so much, and thanks everybody for giving your time up today. I know that we're all very, very busy people, especially with jobs like She, OH and Wellbeing in their titles. There's a lot to do, so I really do appreciate you joining us this morning. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Emily Pearson and I'm the founder and CEO of the Wellbeing Lead Academy. My background is health and social care. I worked in the field for 15 years before turning all of my experience as a practitioner into becoming an educator, specialising in health and social care. Then 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to work with Mind on the first ever mental health culture change programme, which was researched by Mind and commissioned by the government. It was called the Blue Light Programme. It was specifically for emergency service personnel, and some of it's actually still going today. It was a huge legacy to leave behind. The impact was enormous. We actually had 1,000 emergency personnel recruited and trained as blue light champions back in those days. This was 10 years ago, 2016, and the impact that it had was absolutely astounding. And I felt, wow, if we can do this in a really majority male, very masculinized culture, we can do this in any organisation. So I took what I learned, I added it to my background in health and social care, and then set up my own business, working in a workplace mental health and wellbeing. 8 years down the line now, we are a multi-award winning organisation in the workplace wellbeing space. I am also multiple award winning as a professional working in this space as well. My book, Solving a CEO's Blind Spot, Human Sustainability, is about to be published next month. And yeah, what we do with the Wellbeing Lead Academy is we help organisations to develop and deliver impactful wellbeing strategies by seeing wellbeing strategies as the foundation for successful businesses, for thriving human beings that help to improve our economy and make an impact on society. So we don't see wellbeing as wellbeing days, wellbeing benefits, little perks here and there. We see it as actually the structure and disciplines that can be stewarded at a senior leadership level to make sure that it's part of your business strategy and aligned with business goals and outcomes. And the way that we do that is through our accredited certified career pathway. It's the only one in the UK that specialises in professional development for anyone leading on workplace wellbeing. We started a level 3 and go up to a level 5. Our level 5, which Stuart was supporting with assessing, is the only one in the UK that is at foundation degree level. So it takes 18 months to complete. So you can imagine what you learn and what you deliver in that time is hugely impactful. Just to show you, tell you a little bit about how impactful it is. One of our learners that was on in 2024, after 12 months, actually reduced their mental health and work-related stress, sickness absence by 41%. So what it just shows is that when we understand the theories, the models, the strategies, and align it with business success and tackling the problems, it does work. So there we go. There's my introduction.
Thanks, I mean, I did raise my hand because I thought that was a beautiful segue to the slides, or not for that, to the poll. So I'm going to ask for some interactivity, if that's a word, if I can share my screen and if I can get the poll to work. I hate to say this, the question is, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Can everyone see? Come on.
Can't see anything at the questions though. Does it come up in the? Do people have to press the Slido button at the top of their?
There we go. Hopefully this.
Oh no.
Okay. So I have a question.
Okay.
So QR code, please, if you're able to scan that. Question I'm looking just to get an answer from you guys is, how important is it to have a wellbeing qualification if you're responsible for wellbeing in an organisation? This is anonymous. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just your opinion, and it's just to obviously see how this is sitting with people. So, how important is it that you have a wellbeing qualification if you're responsible for wellbeing in your organisation? It's a must-have. I didn't know there was such a thing. It's more about lived experience. Reality is different to theory. So feel free to vote away there.
It's an interesting one. Maybe, Emily, when we get to it, because I think what we recognise specifically in construction, I know obviously you cover all industries, but wellbeing has been added into a lot of people's job titles from the health and safety profession. So, and I think there's a lot of organisations who Stuart and I have worked with that haven't really defined what that means for that role. So I think they might have done some education and some kind of learning, but to formally understand what that wellbeing part means of their job title, I reckon is quite a big gap that we still see within construction, but others might have their own opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, Jenny. And we work in partnership with the Supply Chain Sustainability School. You can't say that after you've had a couple of tequilas. I have tried. It doesn't work. And this is one of the things that we don't just see in the wider sectors and industries, but we see it mirrored within construction as well. Which is exactly that. People are given the wellbeing title or a certain level of responsibility without any training and development, which means that they're lacking in the knowledge, the skills, the tools, and even the confidence sometimes to develop and deliver strategies that have impact. And that's what we want to see. We've got to get the problem solved, the return on investment. So yeah, I have seen that through the Supply Chain Sustainability School, where a lot of people are given that wellbeing title, but without that development. And unfortunately, what that can lead to is people feeling overwhelmed, feeling as if they're not making a difference. This can lead to burnout. You're trying your best, but you feel like you're constantly having to learn as you go. And, anyone that's put hard work into something, it doesn't start to see the impact of that. It can be really downheartening, can't it? You think, gosh, I've done all of this work. I thought I was doing the right thing, but we're not actually seeing the impact out the other side of it. So it can be a lot to carry for an individual.
Yeah, and I think also organisations feel like they've ticked the wellbeing box. We've got a whole team of people doing it now, so we're fine. We've got what we need. But yeah, I'm sure others might have thoughts at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into here, and I'm going to put on the next word cloud because I think that's going to create discussion. And just on what Emily's saying, I'm chomping at the bit to get in on that, as you can imagine. But let's and you know, I'm sure this is going to create a discussion amongst not just us three, but those that are on the call. Let me see if this works. So this is the word cloud. So hopefully that's moved on your screen, and whatever answer you put, and again, that was anonymous, feel free to be honest and open with the reasons why you gave that answer in your previous poll. So 75% said it was a must-have. Some said it was about lived experience was more important. I'll be interested in hearing from those who wrote that. I didn't know there was such a thing. Again, that's an interesting one because half the reason we got Emily, I wanted to get Emily on this call is to let people know that there are qualifications that are out there, and yeah, that can set just the baseline. So things coming through obviously demonstrate competent, evidence-based practice and credibility. That demonstrate competent is probably thanks for putting that on, whoever did that. That to me is massive because, you know, once you start, and again, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. Once you start looking at health and safety law, it states you shouldn't really be doing anything that's beyond your competence. And I'm saying this, I'm saying this with, and Lorraine will know this, with mental health first aiders in play with regards to you go to your qualification, but does that actually, sorry, you go and attend training, doesn't mean say you're qualified, just says you attended, and it demonstrates, you know, are you competent, and then have those types of conversations that an organisation is asking you to do. Anyway, that's another networking group. Again, understanding of law. So if somebody's put that in, keeping everyone safe, showing credibility, clarity, validation. Wellbeing can just start. It can't just be tick box exercise. Here comes Ryan again. Start missing. Okay. Thanks. One or two more people typing away, so feel free to keep putting in why you answered in the last poll. On there, Emily and Jenny, any thoughts or comments on some of those, some of those reasons, expecting those, or?
Yeah, I think with the people that are on this call are the people that you would expect this type of response from, because they're on this call because they are trying to do the right things and they're passionate about it and recognise the opportunities. It would be take this out to wider construction industry. It'd be interesting to see how they would feel about, why it's important. Is it still a fluffy, nice to have thing, or is it an essential part of what's needed to happen? But I don't know, do you want me to open it up to any hands, Stuart, at this point, or has anyone got any thoughts or perspectives on this from things they've seen within their own business? Oh, Lee, that'd be great.
Yeah, just building on skills, knowledge, experience, behaviours, the HSC sort of new terminology with the behavioural, but just demonstrating that you're keeping abreast and of procedures and best practice and stuff like that, really. So for in the construction arena, I think having demonstrable competence is essential, and health and well-being and the softer stuff, the cultural bit, is equally as important.
I don't think I've ever seen it as in a competency matrix, this type of thing. Maybe some mental health stuff, but never the specifics around well-being.
We have one now. It has just been released literally a couple of weeks ago. It has been funded by the Society of Occupational Medicine, and it was Affinity Health that did the research on it. So we now have a workplace wellbeing professional competencies framework, which covers a level 1, 2, and 3. At the Wellbeing Lead Academy, with our qualifications being a level 3, 4, and 5. Level 1 in the competency framework is our level 3. Their level 3 is our level 5. So that's kind of more strategic level. So there is actually a competency framework now, which covers, everything that we understand in the education world around all of those competencies that you just said, Lee. It's not just the knowledge and the lived experience. It's actually the knowledge the skills? Do people have the skills beside the knowledge and those behaviors? And then on top of that, you know, especially within workplace wellbeing, understanding ethics, ethical practice within the space that we're actually working in. That is a huge thing that is often very, very much missing in terms of, you know, wellbeing leads who, I don't know, were maybe doing health and safety before, now being given wellbeing as a responsibility. And we see it all the time. So yeah, that ethical practice is just as important in terms of capabilities and competencies. Good question.
I know we have Sharon that's got a hand up. So Sharon, welcome. It's your first time joining us. So
Yes.
yeah, lovely to
Thank
meet you.
You too, all of you too. I'm really enjoying the conversation so far. I think my thoughts as well is what you've probably seen is that well-being sits in lots of different areas. And when you mentioned, Emily, about ethics, you know, I sit within health and safety, and I've done my qualifications and still on my journey with that, and that covers a lot of aspects of ethics and culture and policies and processes and psychosocial risk management, all of those things that for me in my journey is keeping people well at work, what our duty of care is. So I'd be interested to see what the training involves, but I think it also depends on how you define well-being and where it sits within an organisation.
Great, because we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about, well, what is well-being at work? What are the theories and models? You know, what's the workplace's responsibility? And, you know, look a little bit deeper into, okay, once we understand what that is and we can define it, we have an evidence-based model that is the foundation for it. How do we then build a strategy around that? So yeah, good question.
The other one word that came up, which I thought was poignant, not that they weren't all, but one word that came up which I quite liked, and thank you for whoever put it, was credibility. And having worked internally within organisations in the occupational health team, I'm coining a phrase which I learned very early on in life, is that, I hate to say it, but people buy people. And there's an element there of coming to the table with that element of authority, credibility, knowledge and understanding. And again, somebody put knowledge and research in the word cloud as well. And, you know, that kind of ties it all together. And again, I think when we start looking at potentially what's out there and what's in courses, and what we looking at those who are working in wellbeing, or, you know, having wellbeing as part of their title, what they know and what they don't know, I do think is important from a baseline to be able to sort of gain credibility and dare I say, push back on what potentially is the right way to go, using that theory and that evidence and that research and that framework, as opposed to, we've got some data and we want this data to actually mean what we want it to mean, but it doesn't. And therefore actually look at, you know, what it is actually saying, and how do we go about trying to, you know, support or supply solutions to what that data is telling us, not, well, this is what we want our data to say, and we're just going to go down this route because we feel it's the, you know, it's easy and the low-hanging fruit. So yeah, lots of things to discuss. Emily, I'm conscious of time. We're 20 minutes in already, so, and I know you do have some slides. So, you know, based on the conversation so far, are you able to tell us a little bit more about the, you know, the qualifications that the Wellbeing Lead Academy does, please?
It's probably easier to start with some slides. You know, there's a lot of discussion here, and I don't want this to be a sales pitch either, because it's not. I think it's really important that we're able to share information with each other and help each other to learn. At the end of the day, we all have the same goal. And like I said there, you know, this is all about making sure that workplaces are good for people's health, and that we aren't depleting the main resource that we have within a workplace. Humans are a resource. Our energy, our health and our well-being are personal resources to us, and it depends on our levels of resources in the workplace that make us productive or not. And as we've currently seen from the new Thriving at Work report, we don't need more data to tell us that productivity is down, people are struggling with their mental health and well-being more than ever. Work-related stress is the highest it's ever been, despite it being a legal requirement to prevent since 1999 under the HSE regulations. It tells us that we're not doing something very well. So I think, yeah, let's get into a couple of slides, I think, and just really give a deeper understanding of, or maybe it's come to some agreement about what workplace wellbeing actually means and how we can look at it. Is that okay?
Perfect. Sounds good. Lots of nods.
Lovely. And I do have some complementary resources at the end as well, so stick around for them if you can. Okay, let me bring a slide up. You'll have to excuse me. I am not particularly good at Teams. I'm a Zoom girl, I'm afraid, so hopefully this will work. Can you see my slide okay?
Yeah, it's all showing fine, Emily.
Ah, brilliant. Okay, I just want to start off with a couple of stats, really, just to show us that actually productivity is getting worse. We know that. If anyone saw the King's speech the other day, he was talking about putting investment and productivity at the heart of the government agenda, because we know that productivity is tanking, which is brilliant, absolutely. But we cannot do this on our own. And the workplace is a determinant of health and well-being. So we've got to take this more seriously if we truly want to uplift our country, our economy, and our society as well, so that people are at work functioning well and feeling good. So just some stats from Britain's Healthiest Workplace Report. They did a 10-year study, and they found that productivity had more than doubled in terms of it being lost since 2014. That's huge. So in 2023, the average UK employee lost the equivalent of 49.7 days due to absenteeism. But what we also know is that the majority of your lost productivity doesn't come from absenteeism, it comes from presenteeism. And that is people at work, they're not functioning, they're not being productive to the right levels that we would expect. So when it comes to productivity, we tend to measure that in terms of sickness absence and presenteeism. So whatever is lost between those two, we class that as lost productivity. So in terms of the cost, that meant that due to ill health, it cost our UK economy in lost productivity of the past 10 years, £860 billion. That's £860 billion not going into our economy and then not being filtered back into society. So we know it's a huge problem. So we can see on the right there how we correlate it in terms of presenteeism is classed as 90% of your lost productivity. So if you can figure out the cost of your absenteeism right now in terms of mental health, physical health, work-related stress, whatever your absenteeism is, that's only 10% of your lost productivity. You can add 90% to that, which will account for the presenteeism. We're talking about organisations losing millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds every day due to poor health and well-being. What this study also found out was that lost productivity was greater for younger employees. There was a clear correlation between health and health-related productivity loss over time as well. And also it really did highlight, again, another piece of research, more data that needs to highlight the need for employers to prioritise this, but not as it's Mental Health Awareness Day, come along to a talk. You know, this is a tangible business risk where senior leaders, CEOs are responsible for it. Stuart said it right at the beginning. We are responsible. It's a duty of care to protect the health, safety and welfare of our employees. And that is still not happening. There is no such thing as health without mental health. We can't separate them. They're both part and parcel of being a human being or a well-being. That's where we get the term well-being from. It's about us as beings. So under that duty of care, we have a legal duty, but then also it is that business risk. I call this the CEO's blind spot, and that's why I've just spent the past 12 months writing a book about it, for CEOs to truly understand how this is a risk to their business. Because if we do nothing, by the time 2040 comes around, we're going to be in a much worse position. Poverty will be off the scale, productivity will have absolutely tanked, our economy will be in a mess, and this will impact everybody in the whole country. That's how serious this is when we're talking about it. You can probably tell I get very, very passionate about this. But what also the data told us was when it comes to poor mental health, this was really what was having the biggest impact in terms of lost productivity. So depression is the #1 cause of disability across the world. So depression is classed as a disability, and it was found to have the highest level of lost productivity time. So an employee at risk of depression is estimated to lose 151% more productivity time than anyone else. We then had burnout, and burnout is a workplace phenomenon, and it is the outcome of unmanaged work-related stress over a long period of time. And we can see here that someone experiencing burnout loses 119% more productivity time. Look at it in comparison to physical inactivity. So physically inactive employees lose 28% more productivity time. So when we're talking about health and well-being and our mental health, if our brain is not productive, switched on, has energy, has motivation, feels energized, is not fatigued, this has a bigger impact on presenteeism and sickness absence than physical inactivity itself. There's just some more data on there, but I'll just skip past that because I think I've made my point. But I feel like this just gives us a really good segue into, okay, well, what is workplace well-being? Because yes, Emily, you probably all agree, and bloody hell, this is so important. This isn't just about the workplace. This is about our communities. This is about the people in our lives who we love. It's about our society in the future for generations to come. So what we like to use is the new economics dynamic model of well-being. And if you've seen this before, let me know, but you will absolutely get this. It's so easy to understand. Within this dotted line, you'll see we've got flourishing. This is human flourishing. This is a well-being. And within being a well-being, within human flourishing, there's two things: functioning well and feeling good. So every day when we get up, are we able to function? Are our needs being satisfied? Do we feel like we have control over our lives? Do we feel competent in the world around us? Do we feel safe, secure, and connected to others? If we are, then we're more likely to have good feelings, happiness, joy, contentment, satisfaction. Obviously not every day, because, you know, things happen, hormones happen, things in the world around us happen. But it's usually our levels of resilience that will help us to overcome them quite quickly. So flourishing, human flourishing, good functioning, satisfaction of our needs, good feelings day to day, and this is around joy and happiness and contentment. There's two sides to this. The first side is our personal resources in the purple box here. So if you think about, you got up this morning in your home and you put a backpack on. The minute you woke up this morning, you had a backpack on, you put your backpack on. Inside that backpack was your levels of health, your levels of resilience, your levels of optimism or not, if you're my husband, your levels of self-esteem or not. So how heavy is your backpack every morning the minute you wake up? Because that will play a big part in how you're able to function at work. So then in the green box, we have what we call these external conditions. This is our material conditions. So anyone wake up this morning in their mansion, being delivered their breakfast and coffee in bed this morning? No, probably not, because that's why we're all at work today trying to make some money. But imagine the people who were living in work and poverty, who are working but still not making enough money to live a normal life outside of poverty. They're waking up in external conditions where material conditions are really low, their income levels are low, their levels of financial stability is causing a lot of distress, and the social context, when they look outside in their community, are they sat in a nice area where it feels safe, or do they wake up every day feeling unsafe and unstable? Hopefully this is all making sense so far. I'll go on to the next slide and then we can maybe have some questions off from that, because the next slide is how we move this dynamic model of well-being, because remember, this is before anybody's even come to work. And for many people who are currently inactive because of physical health and well-being, mental health issues, this is why they're inactive. They may be on the sick, they may be unable to work, completely unemployed because of their mental health and well-being. Their personal resources are not high enough to allow them to, and their external conditions are so severe that they're unable to function well and feel good and be productive and make an impact. So that's before anybody even gets to work. Then what happens is we bring it, if you are in work, you bring your rucksack. So remember your rucksack that you put on when you got out of bed, your personal resources, your levels of resilience, your levels of optimism, all of those things that we just talked about. You bring that pack sack to work with you. All of your employees are bringing their pack sacks? Rucksacks, whatever they're called. Anyway, I've totally forgot what they're called.
We know what you mean.
Into the workplace with them. So now we've changed their external conditions, which was their home life, their levels of materialism, but now they're coming to work within this organisational system for 40+ hours a week. So we're carrying these rucksacks around within our organisation. And within our organisation, we'll either determine whether people are able to function well at work, feel good at work, or add more weight into that backpack. So again, here's the functioning at work. So we've got functioning well at work, productivity, we're at work, we're functioning well, we're feeling good. And feeling good is classed as the experience of work. Employee experience, we've even got employee experience leads now because it's so important. But this is the things that create the experience of work. It's not just we leave our backpacks at the door and we come into work and we have to change work. People are bringing their backpacks with them. People are coming to work every day struggling with trauma, abuse, addictions, financial distress, and they're all inside of that backpack. So that experience of work also has a little bit of a link back into our personal resources, and our ability to function work has a feedback loop into our organisational system. So if you're functioning well at work, you're having a great day, you're very, very productive, this will impact the organisational system. If you have a team of people who are all coming to work and they're functioning well, you've got a high performing productive team. If you're not having a great experience at work, you're going to bring it home with you. That's going to be put into your backpack and you then take it home with you. You go home and it lowers your resilience because of bullying and harassment. You then go home and you feel exhausted. You're less optimistic about your life because you feel stuck in a job where your manager's a pain in the arse and you're getting no support, and we're going through another set of redundancies. You're worried about your job. And that begins to impact those personal resources. We take that backpack home with us. So then what's happening within the workplace, within the organisational system? The New Economics Foundation dynamic model shows us that this isn't about wellbeing days and what EAP you've got. Within the organisational system, the major things that impact somebody's health and wellbeing at work is how their job is designed. Do they have the capabilities? Do they have the competencies? Do they have the resources? Is it designed and crafted for them to utilize their skills and have autonomy and control over the way that they work? You've also got the management system. So how's the management system working or not? This isn't just senior leadership making decisions that then have to be managed all the way down. This is also your day-to-day managers, who we know quite often are usually very technically good at the job, but then are promoted into a people manager role without that development, without the knowledge, skills, tools, and confidence to help people to function well at work, to manage workload, to help and support them if they are struggling with stuff outside of work as well. Then you've got the work environment. My hubby is a long distance driver. That's what he did in the army for 8 years. He came out of the army, he said, this is what I do. So that's what he does. He's a tramper. He goes to work on a Monday and he comes back on a Friday. His work environment is his truck. Think about that. He spends 15 hours a day working in his truck, because it's not just driving. You can drive for certain hours, but you may also be sat for a couple of hours waiting for somebody to unload you. 15 hours in a truck, no opportunity to just use the bathroom when he wants to, no opportunity to have healthy food when he needs it, very little opportunity to do any physical health. So the work environment and our ability to look after our health and well-being is just as important. Then what we found was the social value. How much social value do people get from their jobs? Because often this means more to people than their pay. When you see people leaving because of a bigger pay packet, we can absolutely understand that. But sometimes the social value of the work we do means more to us than more money. So that's the dynamic model of workplace wellbeing. And as you can see, just as the final feedback loop, if we're having a good experience at work, we're more likely to function better at work as well. So functioning well at work, we're feeling good while we're there, we're having a great experience at work, and then we're more likely to shout about it and tell people, come and work here. The culture's amazing. We feel supported. Our managers are great. Jobs designed to fit our skills and competencies. I feel really good about knowing the impact that I have on our customers and clients. So there we go. I'll stop sharing that. How do people feel about that as a model? You know, are you using something like this right now? Has this just kind of gone, oh my God, I didn't even realize that workplace wellbeing was about that. You know, tell us a little about that. Malcolm, come on in. Got your hand up there.
Thanks, Emily. It's really interesting, but I would say the challenge that I see that I've got, so I've worked in the construction industry all my life, worked on the tools, site management into what I do now. The construction industry still haven't got this right, and I'll kind of say what I mean by that. So most of the industry are SMEs. I'm not sure about your comment about social values. More people like that now. Every single individual I talk to on site, SMEs, so an organisation who has 4 employees to somebody who has 12, it's money. They need to be paid. We still haven't got it right, because from clients to tier 1s, down through the supply chain, as soon as you go down 2, 3, 4, 5 levels and you have an organisation who are employing agency guys, and you're commenting about hubby and his truck, you know, rings so true in the construction industry. You know, guys sitting in vans on looking at TikTok at lunchtime and eating their lunch when they haven't had anywhere to wash their hands. We still haven't got this right in the construction industry. I'm not sure how we're going to do it and how we're going to reach them SMEs. I've been involved with Working Well Together. I've been involved with IOSH. I've been involved with APS, everything. Nobody yet has come up with how nationally we can reach all these SMEs on a consistent level and give them the support they need. And I'll probably be in my box and we'll still be trying to sort it out. So yeah, I think that's a really interesting point for me, and that's the challenge that I'm lucky at the moment. I work for a consultancy, an engineering consultancy, and in terms of wellbeing, there's a real commitment there, and it's easier to implement policy strategies, campaigns, whatever it is, to make people feel valued and create the right environment. The last job I had last year for a large tier one, large infrastructure scheme, huge diverse supply chain and workforce. The only time I felt as if I really got to them was when I brought in speakers with lived experiences. And unfortunately, because of our industry, there had to be male speakers, which is a bit sad, but they were the only people that the observations I made that actually I could see 40, 50-year-old guys with builders' bums sitting there and actually connecting with the speaker. You know, I'm talking about like Danny Sculthorpe, you know, the ex-rugby player, Jason Anker, people like that have went through experiences, things like that. So I'm really interested in other people's ideas, thoughts, anything that might have worked, anything that we could do that would impact that kind of level.
Yeah, absolutely agree with all of your comments there as well, Malcolm, and thanks for sharing that. This isn't easy, and this is why, you know, we talk about the strategy being aligned with the business goals. I think you're right. When it gets into construction and you've got your tiers, it becomes much harder to then look at it in terms of, okay, well, how do we connect this with our supply chain? I honestly do believe that it will come, because what I see at the moment is that senior leadership are not talking about this. When senior leadership go to their board meetings, when they are at their CEO conferences, there is nobody in those meetings talking about workplace well-being, human health and well-being, or human sustainability, which I call it, and how it should be stewarded in that boardroom for business success. And until that happens, we're going to be stuck with well-being leads with a lack of development, lack of capabilities, not connected or able to influence in that boardroom at all, because we often find that well-being leads they don't even get time with CEOs, never mind anything else. So we've still got a long way to go, Malcolm, but we've come a long way. 10 years ago, we weren't talking about mental health in the workplace. We have moved forward. And even just over the past 6 months, I've started to see a progression around the prevention of work-related stress, despite that being a legal requirement to prevent since 1999. Unfortunately, senior leaders are going to need regulating into this. And I think that's what's going to come off the back of the Keep Britain Working report, the King's Speech. It's all pointing towards workplaces having to do more to protect the human health and well-being within their organisations. And unfortunately, we've started to see more being done around work-related stress, because we've now just seen Birmingham University being publicly shamed and investigated and given a fee for that investigation, and a very long letter of the things that they needed to do to make changes. And we've also just seen an ex-employee of another company win a personal injury claim for psychiatric injury due to work-related stress that was ignored for just under £1 million. Once you start get evidence like that, then workplaces start going, oh my God, we can't be having this. And unfortunately, that regulation and that enforcement is required. But yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, that's for certain, Malcolm.
Yeah, I would say that I would agree with you in terms of progress. I've definitely seen that from, you know, and there is so much good going on from, you know, Mates in Mind, the Lighthouse charity, things like that. It's just this coordination bit that I'm missing in the industry to maybe take it to that next level. It's interesting that I don't know if you've ever seen it. The Health and Safety Executive has actually got a little guide that they issue to the inspectors that if they're on a site and they're concerned about stress or fatigue, or if they're investigating an accident and they believe it may be sitting in a causal chain, you want to see the questions that the HSE, there's a list of them, and I've got it, that the HSE inspectors are prompted to ask. Yeah.
You able to share that, Malcolm, in the chat, please?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that would be really good.
There are a couple of questions coming in, Emily, which I'd like to get to, but for what it's worth, obviously Malcolm's point, it's a very valid and good one. You know, it is. I mean, obviously, when it comes to it, SMEs realistically are going to be looking at, you know, how they're going to survive quarter to quarter or year to year. But I do think there is a bit of a sea change as well. And Malcolm, I was delivering to one of our clients' senior leadership team a couple of weeks ago. It was funny enough, it was a session on burnout and whatnot. I don't know who it was who asked me, didn't get his title, but he basically said that, you know, this was a tier one organisation, I think they are. Anyway, he said, look, you know, our principal contractor, our client, our customer is pushing on us, you know, it's creating this pressure, you know, and it's making it that, you know, we almost are in a situation where, you know, we know we're going to cause damage downstream, but if we say no to them, we're going to lose money or we're going to lose reputation. They're not going to come back to us again. And my argument back to him was at some point, you know, this is going to damage your staff. We need to sort of stand up to, you know, the people who are pushing against this. And the other aspect, and I've got involved with a couple of conversations on LinkedIn, if we're in that world, is the employee is starting to become a lot more savvy around what organisations should and shouldn't be doing. Because you can just put it into ChatGPT or any other AI, whatever you'd like to use, and it will give you verbatim what organisations should and shouldn't be doing. And this is how I think we're starting to see more claims from a legal perspective coming up against the organisations, is because there are a younger generation and also those who are had enough are seeking the legal route, and you know, organisations do have to take note. Now, my next door neighbour's getting a front porch done. It's one man and his dog, and I'm looking at stuff he's doing, and I'm shaking my head because he's a sole trader. But at some point, I do think this will trickle down, and that poor chap's going to have a, you know, in 15 years' time, 20 years' time, he's probably not going to be able to stand up straight because his back's going to be knackered. And I keep telling him so. But at some point, I do think this does trickle down to, you know, one man and his dog at some point. Question in the chat there, where Russell put, which I'll look to ask, is there a need for more emotional understanding at educational level? Is construction a second thought behind academia?
I'm not quite sure I understand that enough to answer it. Russell, can you come in and just explain that a little bit more? Is there a need for more emotional understanding at education level?
I think where I'm coming from with that is that, and what sort of stands out around industry and around places, that survival mode is rife throughout the construction industry, and an understanding of the ego and the mechanism it plays in our everyday human behaviour is something that appears to be missing at education level.
Okay.
But education seems to be so focused on being driven by results and exam results and score tables, and not enough on vocational practice. And that kind of seems to make construction a little bit of a second-class citizen. It makes construction become this kind of, all right, well, if I'm not going to get my A-levels or get a university degree, maybe I'll go into construction. I'll go and try and get a trade. And I just wonder if that, I believe that plays quite a significant part in how young people are maybe feeling by the time they reach coming into the construction industry, if they decide to come into it, because we've got such a skill shortage now, people not wanting to come into it.
Yeah. I think the education system does not currently work for any human being in terms of helping us to understand what it's like to be a human, our emotions, what happens to us, childhood trauma, adverse issues that happen in childhood that can cause, depression in later life. We definitely aren't doing enough of that. And well, in fact, we're not doing any of that. So I think the education absolutely needs to change. So that again, that then comes back to, remember the rucksack. The more that we can do in terms of the community, in education, helping people just to be better human beings. There are some really evil, nasty human beings in this world that cause trauma to people, that people will live with forever and ever and ever. So it's going to be so difficult to change all of this. It has to be education, it has to be societal, it has to be community. We have to be better at being more compassionate towards each other, having more empathy about each other, understanding that everybody's carrying these rucksacks around every day. So many of us are traumatized by life. That you're absolutely right on what you're saying, though. We then hairdressing was the same. I remember being at school, Gen Xer here. I remember being at school and being told, well, because I hadn't passed any of my GCSEs because I was so bored at school and played the nick all the time, I was going to amount to nothing. Why didn't I just become a hairdresser? And construction was exactly the same. And what we see, especially within construction, it's now become this perfect storm of an industry with millions of workers within it who are majority Gen X, latchkey kids. We've had the highest levels of suicide rates and addiction problems since we were teenagers, since we were in our late teens. The majority of us are either in blue collar work, or we're actually CEOs and senior leaders of businesses right now, carrying our stories, bringing our stories every single day to work with us. We don't come to work with that blank slate. So you're absolutely right. When it comes to construction, this is so much bigger than just trying to get the organizational system right. We've got these millions of mainly men coming into work every day with these backpacks. Their work is also impacting on their ability to function well and feel good. They're living in situations that are causing high levels of financial stress, probably more likely living with an addiction problem. And then we wonder why the construction industry has the highest rates of suicide. You just have to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Unfortunately, it's easy to put the pieces together when you understand that. It's going to be very, 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 very difficult to start to solve all of those complicated, complex ecosystem problems, I think. Yeah, it's massive, isn't it, Russell?
Big tanker to turn.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, I do think, and I put it in the chat there, I do think, some of your course does touch on transaction analysis and the ego and parent, child, and adult, and what have you. And I guess this is coming back to bringing us where we came in with regards to, having the knowledge and having the awareness as to how maybe the model that you demonstrated, Emily, fits into a working environment. I could be wrong, but I personally feel that's how you start to, I suppose, unpick, but at least have a direction to move toward. And generally, what I've seen in the industry, and we kind of looked at this after COVID to some degree. Organisations did panic. Some literally closed down and whatnot. But there was an element of let's put a finger in the air and see which way the wind is blowing. And a lot of organisations thought mental health first aiders were the way forward, and went down that route. Without really maybe having that knowledge framework, or at least focal point as to where you want to go. I'm sure you've come across this as well, Emily, and others, having this internal conversation, which is around what is workplace welcome? What is it you're looking to do as an organisation? Let's really get back to basics, and therefore you can then build around that with what's evidence-based. This doesn't mean to say it's going to work, but it's the more likely to work. And you've got to look at evidence and practices that have happened, which give you the best chance to make things work. Each organisation is going to be different. So because what happened with our competitors down the road doesn't necessarily mean to say it's going to work in this organisation. But you can take those frameworks and you take the evidence and the research and overlay that, and you're more likely to get a better result, or at least move the dial in the right direction. So there is a lot to it, that's for sure. I think that once you start looking at what is available and what can act as support in moving you in the right direction to look at root cause, that puts the organisation in a better position.
Yeah, absolutely. So just before people disappear, because I know it's time, I am just about to share one slide, and that's just for you to have if you've have your phone, you can do this as a QR code. This will give you access to our wellbeing maturity assessment. Do the assessment, it'll give you a score, it'll give you some actions for you to take, and you can also book in a complimentary consultation with us. It's completely free. During that consultation, I'll go through our mental health culture change pillar with you. I'll help you to benchmark where you are so that you know next steps to be able to take and how you can start to align your 2026-2027 mental health goals with an evidence-based framework as well. So let me just quickly share that for you, and I'll send the link as well over to Stuart so that he can share the link just in case you've got it QR coded and then you're at work going, oh God damn it, I should have had a link to that on my email address. So this is the QR code. I'll just leave that up on the screen because I know it's time.
And likewise, Malcolm, thanks for sending over the document. I too can't upload it, so we can share that afterwards with a follow-up to the session. That is time. So
yes, thank you.
Thank you to Emily for that, and hopefully it provokes some thoughts in people's minds to what's out there, knowing what's out there, even from that model. Clearly, if they want to learn more about that, they can be in touch with you or me as to learning more about that sort of educational piece. Thanks for the input from others as well, demonstrating that we are all on the same page and want to move in the right direction, and we've got to face these challenges together because it's not going to be one person that's going to be solving it.
Absolutely.
Any closing words from you at all, Jenny?
No, just I've got loads of things I wanted to say, but we need more time to talk. But we're gonna try and start using some more chat functions like in LinkedIn and things like that in our group. So I'm gonna put some of this stuff in there, and if people want to add any more thoughts or have any reflections afterwards, we'll see if we can keep some conversation going. Emily, thank you so much. Really, really eye-opening and giving lots to think about. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.